You just spent thousands on a new engine rebuild and you're getting ready to fire it up for the very first time. You've seen all the horror stories on the internet about initial break-in and failures and the first couple hundred miles of failures. Well, today I'm going to give you the top 6 things that people screw up that keep your engine from having a long, powerful, successful life. Let's get started. Unless you're a machinist, there's 2 people in this equation. There's the machine shop and there's you. And unfortunately, both of you have things that you're responsible for that you need to do to ensure that when you do that break-in, it's successful and you can move on to getting some long-term break-in going. The problem is most folks don't think of some of these things before they fire up an engine for the very first time. So today I'm going to show you those 6 things, and hopefully before you do an initial break-in on your engine, you'll be able to address some of these and make sure that when you do yours, you get it right. This one is for the flat tappet guys, and unfortunately, it's a situation that I see over and over and over again on the internet, and people end up blaming the brand of the camshaft instead of blaming the problem where it really lies, and that's with the builder. I did a very extensive series not too long ago on flat tappet cam break-in, what the problems are and how to solve it. This one is the biggest one. It is the biggest problem that I have seen, and it happens over and over and over again. It generally has nothing to do with the brand. It generally has nothing to do with the quality of the metals have gotten worse. Everything's made in China these days. Those things are internet myths. They're not actual reality. The number one thing that flat tappet guys do not know and never know after a failure when asked them about the situation that they're in is what the lifter to bore tolerance was that the machinist measured before the engine was released to them. No one ever knows that. Well, why is that important? Flat tappet lifters have to rotate to survive. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When they stop rotating is when you see all these awful pictures of fouled up, grooved, totally destroyed hydraulic lifters and camshafts because the lifter stopped rotating in the bore. How do you make sure that the lifter is going to rotate within inside the bore? It's knowing what that lifter to bore tolerance is before you even do the assembly. Generally speaking, that tolerance between the lifter body and the bore of the block needs to be around 15,000. Now that's fairly universal. There may be some instances where that changes, but if you have a tolerance that's bigger than that, problem is you don't get the interaction between the lifter and the block, and that lifter stops rotating inside the block. Why would the lifter bore wear? Well, that's a pretty simple answer. Why do piston bores wear? They just wear. What happens? You bore it, you put an oversized piston in it, or you sleeve it. What happens when a lifter bore wears? No one measures it. No one knows what the tolerance is between the lifter and the block, and they just forget about it. They just install it. They wipe out the camshaft. They go, oh, this is just Chinese junk now, man. No, that's not the problem at all. The problem is you didn't measure that lifter to bore tolerance. When you don't do that, you're going to run into that problem a ton of times, unfortunately. We're going to talk about roller stuff here in a minute, but certainly the flat tappet guys, this is your number one nemesis. It is what's going to kill you most of the time. And the problem is it's your machinist's fault, and it's also your fault for not asking. So if you're building a flat tappet motor, have the machinist measure and give you the measurement per hole, every single hole, of what the lifter to bore tolerance was. I covered that in a past video. I'll leave that link so you can go watch it if you want to. That whole series is really good on flat tappet failures. But set yourself up for success. This is one of the places where you can fail really quickly, really easily, and really catastrophically. Next big one is engine break-in speed. Now, this is not universal. There is not 1 RPM for all engines, all camshaft types. It just does not work. This is a small block Chevy in the GMC. It is a hydraulic roller, but if it was a flat tappet engine, we would be breaking this in around 2,500, 23 to 25. It's okay if it fluctuates a little bit. What you're trying to do is you're trying to get a lot of oil thrown up onto the camshaft, a lot of oil coming in from the top side of the motor. You need a lot of lubrication on there. You cannot let it sit at idle for any extended period of time, you need to get a lot of oil going on there. You need to make sure that the lifters are rotating aggressively. That's what you're trying to do with this RPM or this initial break-in. Get the RPM enough to facilitate all those things. On a roller motor, you're not going to do this type of break-in. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But on a small block Chevy, this is pretty typical for a good break-in RPM, 23 to 2500 RPM. On a big block Chevy, that is way too much. That is a big, heavy valve train, and you are going to screw something up. The possibilities of screwing something up are much higher. Anything with a big, heavy valve train, Oldsmobile, FE4, big block Chevys, they do not take that. 18 to 1900 RPM is about the max on a big block Chevy on break-in. Now, your best bet here is to always consult the cam manufacturer. Whatever they say, go with. But just know that if you ask on the internet, hey, what's my break-in, I'm going to break in my cam on my big block Chevy, and a half a dozen people go, yeah, do it at 2500 RPM, man, and vary the RPM. 2500 is way too much on that valve train. You need to break it in slow. Another one of those awful things that people do that unfortunately come back to haunt them very frequently. Getting the correct break-in RPM on initial break-in. Let's talk about equipment. Now this one's a tough one because it's going to mean you've got a lot of work to do on your end. But again, if you've got a big, heavy, high spring pressure, high duration, very aggressive cam, running a lighter spring is an excellent idea. Now, again, that means you're going to have to tear heads down and all that, but you want lighter spring pressure on a break-in. Again, there is no solid number across the board that you want, but typically, we'll go back to the big block Chevy. 100, 125 on the seat and maybe 200 open, 220 open at the max will give you good pressure, so where you can break the thing in and not have to worry about too much pressure on the cam lobe and on the lifter. So I know it's a tough one, but spring pressures are a big one. If you screw that up, you're going to have a difficult time potentially with what happens to that engine. This is a popular one. You see people talk about it all the time, but break-in oil. Run an actual formulated break-in oil. Don't play chemist. Don't buy an off-the-shelf API regular oil and then think you're just going to put a zinc additive in it and everything's going to be fine. It's not. The problem with that is the zinc additive has detergents in it. That detergent, when it sees the zinc, it starts to attack it. The other side of that is when you blend those together or you dump those down into the engine, they're not blended for quite some time. It has to be at a certain temperature before those two oils, generally, depending on the additive package, will blend together. So your initial protection on startup doesn't occur until you get some heat into the oil and it starts to work itself together, blend itself together. So always buy a formulated break-in oil. I know it's a little bit more money, but buy a couple oil changes of it because you're going to need it for multiple times. The initial break-in on the engine and 300 to 500 miles of break-in time to make sure you get the proper seating of the rings, and that way it seals up. It's got good performance the rest of its life. Break-in oil is a big one. Again, I know it's expensive. Do the right thing. Buy break-in oil. Don't formulate your own. Another one I see is not enough break-in time. Most folks know that they have to do an initial break-in on the engine if it's flat tappet cam engine. On a hydraulic roller, those things change a little bit. You don't typically need to do that, but on a roller motor, you certainly don't want the thing to sit around and idle for long periods of time. You want to get out and drive it. Same with the flat tappet as well. You don't want a ton of idle time. You need the oil getting up onto the cam. You need the oil circulating through the engine aggressively at max flow, max pressure. And when you have a lot of idle time, it does that. But the problem is most folks go, okay, well, I did the initial break-in, went fine. Things are awesome. I'll change the oil. I'll put in my regular oil. No. If you're doing a full rebuild and you've bored the engine, or even if you've just rehoned it and re-ringed it, it needs time to break in the ring to the cylinder wall. And if you don't give it enough time with a non-detergent break-in oil, you're going to run into some problems. Sometimes those just look like a little bit of smoking a little bit later in its life because the rings had to wear themselves in on a detergent style oil where It kept wiping away that protection. A non-detergent break-in oil is exactly what you needed it to do. So run it for that extended period of time. Again, it depends. Certain engines are not going to be the same, but just really depends on the rings and how the engine was bored and what the RA of that cylinder is. Typically 3 to 500 is the pretty general recommendation. Again, ask your builder of how long he wants it broken in for. Now, all this is on a street engine. You're not going to be able to do this on a race engine. Obviously, you're never going to get 500 miles on a race motor, but you typically don't care. You don't give a crap if it's blows a little oil past the rings and all those things. So you don't need to really worry about that. We're just talking about a street engine, and on a street engine, yeah, 3 to 500 will get you in the ballpark where you need. Then you can take the break-in oil out of there. Then you can go to your regular everyday oil, and the engine will be happy for it. Another common mistake, and I get this one, trust me, I fully understand it, and that's driving too hard on an engine before it's fully broken in. Now, yeah, doing big smoky burnouts everywhere is always fun, and yeah, as soon as you fire up a nice sounding engine, you want to do that immediately and start having a good time with it, but you certainly do not want to put a lot of stress on those parts that are just trying to figure out where their home is at. So I know it's a tough one. Again, that initial break-in period, that 2 to 500, 3 to 500 miles is a good time to not do anything. After that, it's typically okay. Some folks will go, well, I try to go to 1,000 or 1,500, and that is perfectly acceptable. You don't have to be, overly cautious about that. But if you're a little more cautious than not, it's not a bad thing. I wouldn't worry about it. But yeah, certainly giving it plenty of break-in time is a positive thing. So again, don't get heavy-footed on it and want to do those. Big old nasty burnouts and donuts and all that other stuff. Wait a little bit of time, your engine will thank you for it. Last one is oil change frequency and cutting open the filter to inspect it. Now, get into that habit. I cut open every single filter that I use because I want to see what's on the inside of it. I've done a number of videos on this showing what was inside of filters and why you should do it, but this one I think I got it from off Amazon or Summit, whatever. A little expensive, but makes the process go a lot quicker. But cutting open that filter to see if there's any metal, anything that's really shiny, any big, huge, chunky pieces of contaminants, those are important things to know so you can kind of monitor the health of the engine as you're going through the break-in process, that extended break-in, even just the longevity of just a normal day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year operations of the engine. Always get used to cutting open the filter. Again, I do it on every single thing that I own. Lawnmowers, my car, my truck, my daily driver, everything. It just gives me the peace of mind of knowing what's going on in the engine, at least at a visual level. You're not always going to get that perfectly every single time. If you want to do a oil analysis to figure out what's actually in the oil, I highly recommend that as well too. We've done a number of videos on that using the Speed Diagnostics oil service, which you send a sample in, they send you a report back and give you the breakdown of everything that is in that oil, including a lot of information on the additive package, how it's breaking down. It's a really great report. It can get a little expensive, and I wouldn't recommend probably doing it on every single oil change, but certainly on an engine that's very expensive, important to you, it's not a bad thing. So get used to doing it, at least at minimum, just start cutting them open every single time. Having that knowledge and understanding what's going on is a pretty big deal. So again, I love doing these, but yeah, the frequency of the oil change is also the other one. Again, we talked about initial break-in, that first 25, 30 minutes of a break-in on a flat tappet camshaft. You're going to want to change the oil then. Go back to a break-in oil on the second oil change or the first oil change on the engine for that second period, which is the extended period, and then you want to change it after that. And then I never go to that, that once a year, or some guys go, yeah, well, the oil says it's good for 5,000 miles. If that engine sits for long periods of time, months at a time, even an entire year, you only change it once a year, The problem with that is the additive package tends to break down the more fuel that's introduced to it. So if your carburetor is not tuned well, which, let's be honest, a majority of folks don't have really, really good tuned carburetors, and the oil gets saturated with fuel, it breaks down the additive package and it will cause issues. Condensation from sitting there, all those things are critically important to the life of an engine oil. So at minimum, I would change oil at least twice a year. Me, because I drive my junk quite frequently, I usually probably put about 2,500, 3,000 miles on now. Is that excessive? Yeah, it's probably too soon, but I would rather, oil changes are cheap. I would rather spend the money on an oil change than spend money on tearing down an engine, figuring out what went wrong, replacing gaskets, bearings, rods, mains, crank, whatever blew up in the thing. Hopefully it didn't get that bad, but yeah, oil changes are cheap. There's no reason to do it, wait that long. If you're on a racing side of things, certainly you're replacing oil or doing oil changes every couple of rounds, or once a race, whatever the case may be. But yeah, on a street driven type of vehicle, start cutting it open and get the right oil changes frequency in there. It'll help the engine last a lot longer. Well, I hope that I gave you some ideas and some things to look for, some things to hopefully do to prevent yourself from having a very ugly situation potentially be on your hands. By the time this video drops, it's going to be, well, we're going to get pretty close to, at least here in the South, start breaking in engines and start getting ready for spring, summer driving. So what are you breaking in, or what do you got building that you're working on right now that you haven't fired up for the first time? Drop it down in the comments. Let me know what you're working on. I always like hearing what everybody's playing with. Sometimes it gets some pretty wild stuff, but it doesn't even matter. I'm a Ford guy, I'm a Mopar guy, I'm a Chevy guy. I love them all. So let me know down in the comments what you're working on, what you're getting ready to break in. Maybe we can help you figure things out before things go catastrophically wrong. I always appreciate you guys stopping by and watching these videos. Please comment, subscribe, like. I know you hear that from YouTubers, but what that does is it helps YouTube push the content out to more people. It helps me out with the channel, and the more eyes on it, the better it is for me, because I can help more people, and yeah, we can kind of grow the community together. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. Good luck with your break-in. I hope you don't have any of these problems, but if you do, well, we could probably work through that as well too. We'll catch you guys on the next one. We'll see you.